Hi, and welcome back to another episode of the DDGeopolitics podcast. I am finally joined by the one and only Carlos from Bali with a very unique time zone at the half-hour point to talk to us about China. Welcome, Carl. How are you?
Hi, how are you? Nice to
Good.
meet
Thank
you.
you for asking. Nice to finally meet you. So, we're going to talk about the internal politics of China for a second, which I don't really think get enough discussion. What can you tell us about currently what the political climate is inside of China? Everybody that I talk to from China always is like, I'm content, I'm happy, things are great. But what's going on? And now we have a little bit of tumult in the Xinjiang area and that kind of thing. So what is going on with China right now, currently?
Actually, there's not much turmoil in Xinjiang right now. There was back 10 years ago, say a period between 2000 all the way through 2010s, particularly bad around 2014, around the time when ISIS in Syria was, looks like they're going to take over. That was the worst time. But now, this is why there was a strong security response from the Chinese state, in particularly from 2014 all the way to 2018. But that is all over. Like right now, people look at the media, they will say, "Oh, there's 1 million Uyghur in Chinese camp." That's totally not true because, first of all the 1 million figure that was thrown out by a NED funded China human rights defender organization. They were the first to come out with that figure, and they based on their study on supposedly interview with 8 Uyghur villagers from counties surrounding Kashgar, and 8 Uyghurs are from 8 villages. And based on their supposedly testimonial, they did extrapolation. They extrapolated about 10% of the village were sent to re-education, and then they extrapolated from those 8 villages to the entire population of Xinjiang. So that's how they got, so there's like 11 million Uyghurs in Xinjiang. So they're like 10% from those 8 villages. That means 1 million Uyghurs must be in camps. This is completely BS. But China did have re-educational de-radicalization centers in Xinjiang because China in Xinjiang experienced a series of terrorist attacks from 2000s all the way to 2015. What happened was the goal of these de-radicalization centers is always to integrate people back into the society after a couple of years. So in 2019, in I think the June of 2019, the Chinese government has announced all the re-education centers has been closed. All the de-radicalization centers has been closed. So right now there's no camps, and Xinjiang is actually have been calmest since the 2010s. And so but for Chinese internal politics, I know a lot of people don't really understand how it works, but I would just let's just contrast it with United States. Many people are familiar with United States. So Obama, before he became the president of the United States, what did he do? He was a senator, right, from Illinois. But before he was senator in Illinois, what was his job? What was job qualification? He was a community organizer in Chicago, right? So basically, the DNC, the Democratic establishment, handpicked him, put him, made him, got him to the senator position in Illinois, and later a faction of DNC, that didn't like Hillary, propelled Obama to to be the Democratic candidate, and because Obama is has a nice presentable face, He wears a civil face of the American empire. So that's why he was chosen. Now let's talk about, or even look at today, right? United States now in 2024 election, we're facing with choice between either Biden or Trump. What a great choice, democratic choice we have. But in China, it works a little bit different. If you look at Xi Jinping's career, he started at the grassroots level. He started when he graduated. He started as a party secretary at a rural village, and he worked his way up the ladder. Later he became promoted to the county level, and then prefecture level, and eventually provincial level. So he worked all over China. He started out as a party secretary in a rural village in northern China, and he climbed his way up, and eventually he was made a party secretary of the city of Xiamen, on a Chinese city on the Taiwan Strait, opposite of Taiwan, and from there he later became the provincial party secretary of Fujian, the entire Fujian province. So that's a leadership selection process for the Chinese leadership. They have to work their way from the bottom, so they know how it functions, how the state machine functions at each rung, at each level. By the time that Xi Jinping became the president of China, he has a pretty good idea of each part of different parts of China, and as well as how things work at different level. You can't say the same thing about United States. Now, U.S. we just have career politicians, and and they're just paid and bought for by special interests. This is why U.S. right now, nobody in U.S. can say anything other than supporting Israel. Anybody who hopes to be a serious candidate for either the presidency or the Congress, they all have to be rah-rah Israel. So that's the reality of United States. Whereas in China, that's not the case. U.S. is fundamentally a government that's set up for the oligarchs. I like to say the U.S. has the best politician that money can buy. But in China, it's different, because the Chinese state has always kept the merchant class on a very tight leash. That was true even back in the imperial days. The Confucian bureaucracy always kept the merchant class down, make sure they don't get too uppity. And this has translated into the modern day China. The Communist Party still hold the ultimate power. They will not let billionaires like Jack Ma to dictate policy. In United States, billionaires, either Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos, they can buy entire media chain, media platform, and they can fund lobbies and think tanks to influence policy. In China, that's not the case. Jack Ma, he can't even own newspaper on mainland China. He has to go to Hong Kong to buy the South China Morning Post. But he ultimately, when Jack Ma's Alibaba trying to branch out to financial sectors, which Chinese state regulates, he got slapped down. Because. That just not allowed. So the difference is the capital has to bend its will to the Chinese state in China, but whereas in the United States, the capital dictate policy. It's just a matter of, like right now we have different parties battling out in the United States, but in the background it's just a different they're different donors of different billionaires fighting for a piece of the larger pie. I hope that makes sense. Feel free to ask me any questions or comments.
It does make sense, but I want to go back to the Uyghurs in Xinjiang, because it seems that every time we kind of have sort of tumult, sort of a controversy in the Muslim world, this sort of Uyghur storyline pops up. So what happened the other day is that the IRGC did bomb the Turkistan Islamic Party of Syria, which is directly associated with Xinjiang and the Uyghurs. What I've been trying to explain to people is that this is not. This is actually a Western-backed, Western-sponsored sort of terrorist group aimed to actually create anti-China, foment anti-China rhetoric inside of the Muslim community. Can you shed some more light on that as someone who's very much experienced in China?
And as far as you can see, it's not really the Western-backed propaganda on the so-called Uyghur genocide story is not taking roots in Muslim majority countries, because many of the Muslim majority countries in the world still support China. They even openly support China on its Xinjiang policies, and then you just get all these Anglophone media. It's like, why the Muslim countries not condemning China but condemning Israel? I mean, come on, guys. This is, world just doesn't function like, you can't just wish it into existence. This atrocity propaganda works very well is on the Western audience, including even Muslim diaspora in the West, because they live in the West, so they're constantly exposed to the same Western propaganda. I like to say US has the most propagandized population in the world, because people live in China or former Soviet Union. They understand the state media is a mouthpiece for the state. So they know how to read the news, right? Whereas people in the West, they assume they have free media, right? Which is anything far from the truth. So a lot of times they kind of uncritically accept. I mean, now people are wising up. People are, the mainstream media is.
Did you see Andrew Tate's tweet about watching CGT? So now we've got all of these kind of which is great, as a blessing and a curse. But now you kind of have all of these manosphere followers that are now like, "What's up with Chinese media? Like, what's going on?" So that was kind of.
I mean, if anything, you give CGTN extra exposure, and I mean, personally, I consider CGTN a bit dull, because a lot of the time they're just presenting facts, because
that's what we
boring,
right? Yes, it's all factual, but like that CGTN is like the most boring one. But then you get the anchors off CGTN, and they are wild. They are like some of the most outspoken commentators, and they're great. So it's really refreshing to see someone like Andrew Tate, especially now that Jackson's sort of traveling through China and opening up that door. And I have somebody like Andrew Tate mentioning CGTN. While I don't really traverse in those circles, I was like, this is actually really cool. This is really good for China, especially since Tate has kind of worked with Syria, the actual Syria, not the terrorist Syria. And now,
I mean, a lot of people, DM me, say, you shouldn't retweet Andrew Tate. Because I'm like, look, man, it's all about. There's no bad publicity. I mean, if anything, this gives publicity to Chinese state media, to CGTN. It might draw people who otherwise wouldn't have been exposed to CGTN or anything from the Chinese side. Now maybe they have a little spark of curiosity to look up. I mean, I don't care for Andrew Tate or whoever, but what they're doing, it's a conduit, it's a vehicle, it's a gateway drugs to introduce a different perspective to a whole new segment of the population.
Andrew Tate is the gateway drug to China.
Yeah, exactly. This is like it's like anyway. So this is why I used to say, like, anime and K-pop are the gateway to Chinese culture ultimately, because like people outside, they don't really can't tell the difference between East Asians anyway. So eventually they will discover the Chinese cultural products. But anyway, so I'm getting off tangent. But I like to talk about but going back to the Uyghur issue. So Seymour Hersh, a famous American journalist who exposed the My Lai massacre in Vietnam and many others, he wrote a article back in the 2010s called "The Rat Line," it's exposing the CIA's, the biggest CIA operation after Afghanistan. In Afghanistan, CIA carried out Operation Cyclone to, enable the Mujahideens to fight the Soviets. That's well known, but less well known is the biggest CIA operation after Operation Cyclone, the one now that was happening in Syria during the Syrian War, called Operation Sycamore. And Operation Sycamore is getting funnel jihadists from all over the world to Syria to overthrow Bashar al-Assad. And first they pipe all the jihadists from Libya who they encouraged to overthrow Gaddafi. And supply them with weapons and ship them to Syria, and all these Western intelligence agencies, send all these extremist groups in their own country in Western Europe, who they have been monitoring for years, to allow them to go to Syria, have safe passage to Syria and Iraq, and join ISIS. But there's another rat line to Syria that very few people know about, to the point that so far I only know one mainstream media, I think it's either Reuters or Washington Post, that had reported on this. There was a line to funnel Uyghur jihadists from Xinjiang to Syria. So this happened around the 2010s. And a lot of at that time, because of the increasing terrorist attack in Xinjiang, so the Chinese state start to crack down. And what they first did is they sealed the borders along all around Xinjiang, the border of Xinjiang, along with the Central Asian republics and Pakistan. And then, but a lot of the extremist Uyghurs are looking to get out. And what they did was, because China built this amazing infrastructure, they just hop on the high-speed train to travel to a different part of China, to Southwest China. Because Southwest China, especially the border with Vietnam, Laos, Myanmar, that the area called Golden Triangle, it's pretty porous. And so the people, a lot of the extremist Uyghurs, they would take their entire families to travel to southwestern region of China, cross over the border that goes through Vietnam, Laos, Cambodia, Thailand, and eventually they reach the Turkish consulate in Malaysia, in Kuala Lumpur. And at that time, this was before the US assisted coup against Erdogan. So back in the early phase of Syrian war, Turkey was firmly aligned with United States as well as UAE and Saudi to overthrow Assad. So at that time, the Turkish consulate in Kuala Lumpur will provide authentic Turkish passport to any Uyghurs who stop by, and that will enable them to fly from Kuala Lumpur to Istanbul. But right as soon as they step off the plane, they will be greeted by the jihadist recruiters who urge them on to go to Syria, to settle in the Idlib province. That's like the basically the headquarters of all these various striped
so-called
free Syria,
free Syrian army. Yeah, they're going to
free Syrian army, but really controlled by Al Qaeda. You mentioned the Turkistan Islamic Party. So the Turkistan Islamic Party, they are Uyghur jihadist outfit that was based in Afghanistan. It was created during. It came together during the first CIA Operation Cyclone, to enable Mujahideens to overthrow the Soviet. But because around that time, 1979, around the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan, there was a new road opened up between China and Pakistan, the Karakoram Highway. So, and China was also opening up. So goods are flowing, but also people. A lot of young Uyghurs were traveling on Karakoram Freeway to Pakistan, where they would tend to. Some of them attended the Saudi financed build madrasas along Pakistan, Afghanistan border for the Afghan refugees to radicalize them. So these radicalized Uyghurs will head over to Afghanistan to fight the Soviet army, and eventually they form a group called at various times they have different names like East Turkistan Islamic Movement, or but now their current name is Turkistan Islamic Party, and they are they joined the Al Qaeda network. In fact, the head of the Turkistan Islamic Party, he sits on the High Shura Council of Al Qaeda, right? So these Al Qaeda guys, they are as part of the Al Qaeda's a plan to send their fighter to Syria. So they had this network to funnel extremist Uyghurs from China to Syria, and they had people estimated there's anywhere between like 5,000 Uyghur fighters, and together with their family making up like some say 10-20,000 Uyghur people in Idlib. And these are the people that Iran missile bombed recently, and it wasn't Iran. United States used to bomb Turkistan Islamic Party in Afghanistan. You can look it up. People can Google it. But guess what? Guess what Pompeo did? Pompeo took the so back in 2000, after 9/11, George Bush went to Beijing. People don't remember. People have such short memory span, but I'm old. Yeah, I'm old enough to remember. Just before 9/11, China and US was already on collision course. There was a 2001 Hainan spy plane incident when a US spy plane was buzzing around Chinese coast and collided with a Chinese fighter jet, and eventually the US spy plane was forced to land on Chinese military base on Highland Island, and that was such a big, people in the United States went crazy. They're saying like China is holding this pilots hostage and all that, and so all that tension it got redirected when 9/11 happened. So after 9/11, George Bush went to China, tried to patch up the relationship with China, and one of the deals that we worked out was. China's demand was United States to put East Turkestan Islamic movement on the terrorist list. So that happened. And they stayed on the terrorist list for years, and until Mike Pompeo said, no, they're not terrorist group anymore. So now Turkestan Islamic Party is no longer classified as a terrorist group by the United States, even though it's part of the Al Qaeda network, and its leader sits on the highest Al Qaeda council. So that's how it works. I mean, and then we are, and again, I remember when Israel started bombing. This was before October 7th. This was back when every time, because Israel has been bombing Gaza for a while, and back when every time Israel is doing something in Gaza or doing something in Al-Aqsa Mosque, suddenly you will see all the Western major mainstream media news network will come out with a story. China has turned Xinjiang into the world's largest open air prison. I mean, this is so obvious because everybody knows Gaza is the world's largest open air prison. So then every time something happens in Gaza, they will come out with stories about Xinjiang, right? I mean, for people who know, this is so obvious what they're trying to do.
Exactly.
They're just but it's